his cardiac. Catch me in the Muni where the party at. Dog pound, turn up with the elf up on my starter cap. Brought him back, boy, we from the land and we proud of that. Louder man, front to the back, here we go, I got him shouting that. Here we go, brownies. Here we go. Here we go, brownies. Here we go, brownies. Stand up. Here we go, brownies. Let's go. Game on the line, Joe Thomas, I promise. Jim Brown running through opponents, how I got this. I return like Josh Cripps. Paying for the mini, got the dog pound jumping. Here we go, brownies. Here we go. Here we go, brownies. Here we go, brownies. Stand up. Here we go, brownies. Let's go.
Cleveland! This is for you! This is for you!
Welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the Here We Go Brownies podcast. I'm Allie Ellery, coming at you live from Pensacola, Florida. Joined with me, as always, out in beautiful Cleveland, Ohio. We've got Dustin. Dustin, how's it going?
It's been good. A couple weeks since you've been off the show. Last week we had a fun show. Hayden Grove joined us from St. Louis, from the airport. It was kind of interesting. He was coming back from LA, thanking all of his people that he competed against on The Voice. Obviously, he made it to the second round of The Voice. He's actually coming out with a couple pop hits he's going to release in a couple 3 or 4 months. I think that's super cool because, Hayden Grove, if you have ever heard Michael Bublé, he literally, if you didn't know, it was Michael Bublé. He literally is a crooner. He sounds just like Michael Bublé. He was on talking about his event May 31st from our good sponsors over at Lake Erie Distillery. He'll be playing out there this Saturday. Super cool. I had him on, and then Ray came on. And then last week, everybody, Ray introduced and is now part of the A&D Media family with Superfan Addicts podcast. And by the way, he said, you watch me. And he went out and got over 500 followers already, like, bam, just like that. Like, he knows what he's doing. By the way, Allie, he hired himself a producer. I'm not making this up. He has a producer helping him produce the show. So, we met Ray, 3-4 years ago, and now he's rocking and rolling. He's ready to go.
Yeah, that's great. You mentioned our friends over at Lake Erie Distillery. So Dustin, why don't you tell our listeners all about that place?
Yeah, guys, Lake Erie Distillery. If you haven't been there, it's over in Willoughby, Ohio. They have some amazing stuff like this right here. That's right. This amazing, trying to make sure I can get the camera there. This amazing, that's right. This Burning River cinnamon flavored whiskey. It's amazing. But check it out. You can get it at your local Northeast Ohio liquor stores or ask for it in a bar or restaurant near you if you can't find it. But go check them out over there in Willoughby. They're always doing some fun things. Like I said, they got, of course, Hayden Grove this weekend on Saturday. But it's fun to go over there, open till 8 o'clock to go check it out. They got food, really good food as well. So check them out if you're just wanting to get away and have a nice evening over in the burbs, as one might say.
All right, there you go. Some things to get to tonight. We're of course going to bring on Dr. David Ullery here in just a little bit, go through some injury things with him. We're going to discuss OTAs tonight. What we know about OTAs anyways. Obviously, we're not there, so we're going to just talk about what we know and what's been reported so far.
I got the numbers here, by the way. Got the numbers.
What'd you say? Sorry?
I got the numbers here, too, to go over today's quarterback stuff.
Yeah, we've got some stuff to talk about. We're going to do some way too early superlatives for this Browns team and just kind of have some fun with the show tonight. Before we really get into it, we do want to tell you about our friends over at Mr. Hero. Here's a quick word from them.
SOS, I could use a hero right about now. My faith in love is upside down. H-E-R-O, where do we all go? SOS, I could use a hero right about now.
Mr. Hero's turning 60. We're proud to have served your favorite cravings for 60 years and celebrating what we do best. Thanks, Ohio.
I crave a hero.
If you're not familiar with Mr. Hero, you need to be. They're celebrating their 60th anniversary of being in business. They have 104 Mr. Hero locations in Northeast Ohio. And you need to get the app. If you don't have that, you can get a buy one, get one offer just for signing up. They have monthly coupons, a bunch of different offers, surprise rewards, points, all of that good stuff. And of course, you can order through the app. So be sure to go check them out over at Mr. Hero. And by the way, I love that song. It's so catchy.
Yeah, by the way, Ray was dancing around to that like you were too. I'm like, it is like very, very catchy.
It's a good
like
song.
that Yeah.
Jingle.
But also the family 4-pack. As you know, we give away that every single week. We'll announce the winner tomorrow morning of this week's from last week's winner. That family 4-pack, so you can go feed your family when you don't want to go home and make dinner for the evening.
There you go. All right, let's get into some Browns talk. Let's start with OTAs, Dustin. A lot of news circulating right now. What do you make of it? Myles Garrett not at OTAs. Give me your take.
He wasn't there last year, so this is like par for the course. Myles Garrett, obviously, a lot of these players, I think Greg Newsome and David Njoku are also not there. I know where David Njoku is because I got a funny thing to tell you, Ellie, that we're going to have to play this skit of something that happened a week ago or so. You're going to laugh because you're going to love it. It's pure Dustin comedy. But no, these guys are veterans. Like, Greg, if I'm Greg, I'm probably showing up. But someone like David Njoku, they don't go through this first round. They show up when it's mandatory. I make zero of it because I know what I'm getting from Myles Garrett day one when he shows up. He's going to be 90% better than the entire team.
Yeah. I have a couple of different viewpoints on it. I kind of subscribe to that belief mostly just because it doesn't matter. Some of these other guys aren't there. We're not putting pressure right now on David Njoku, Deontay Johnson, guys like that that aren't there. However, the other aspect of it is this is a guy that had a very public and ugly trade request and was very, once the extension was signed, hey, I'm going to be a leader. I'm going to show up. And I still am pounding the table that this Browns team needs an accountable, vocal, present leader. That's something that this team has not had. Really, let's just say in the past 4 or 5 years, we have not had a face of the franchise vocal, facing leader. I was hoping that Myles would be that. And I think that missing that right now, a lot of people just kind of have a sour taste in their mouth because of what happened a few months ago with this whole trade request. But in the grand scheme of things, does this matter? No, it doesn't. He's going to be at training camp. This is kind of nothing. But I do think that there's probably some discussion internally of like, oh, probably should be here. But at the end of the day, these are totally voluntary. So, I mean, I don't know what I would do, but I would have liked to see him be there.
Yeah. And I'm going to put myself in Myles Garrett's seat, right? Did I want to leave? There's probably a fairly good chance I was leaving the Cleveland Browns, right? And I could also sit in that same chair if I'm on the Brown side of the seat and say, we almost lost him because we wasted some great years of his career based on a quarterback that we picked. So, I can there's some real logic to that, right? And you know what? He's going to come in and, is he going to turn 30 this year? Does that sound about right? He's close to 30, I think.
Right. Let me double check that, though.
I could also see him saving the wear and tear on his body, man. We know he has that foot issue. He has things that he deals with. He's going to be asked to do a lot this season. Part of it could be just getting his body right and staying as healthy as he can because he isn't 24 years old anymore. It'd be interesting to go back and look how many of these OTAs 4, 5, 6 years ago he withheld from, compared to the last couple of years. It'd be interesting to see what that looks like. And maybe this is something that's just over the last couple of years he's decided to do to just get more relaxation on his body, the wear and tear. But I make nothing of it at the end of the day. It is what it is,
I'm split on this. Like, grand scheme of things, does it matter? Like, no, I don't think that it does. He's going to show up and produce for this team. I mean, he's always done that. He has always been a leader to a certain extent on the field all the time, lead by example kind of guy. But after signing that extension, after that very public trade request and going on Media Row and, saying the things that he said about the team, it would have been nice to see him there currently. He's at an anime conference in Japan. So it's kind of weird, but like
with allegedly his new girlfriend that is all over social media. So
yes, but in the big picture, this doesn't matter. Now, if this is a trend that continues into training camp, of course, I think a lot of people are going to have a lot of things to say. But right here, right now, nothing to get too worried about, hopefully. Let's kind of transition and talk about some of the quarterback situation. Joe Flacco was asked about being a mentor. Have you heard his comments?
Say that one more time. Sorry.
He was asked about being a mentor to some of these younger guys or to all of the younger guys in the quarterback room. Did you hear what he had to say?
But who is that? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Oh, Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco.
Oh, Joe Flacco. Yeah, I like that, right? I mean, we've heard from Stump Mitchell, former coach of the Browns, say Joe Flacco was in there at 5:30 and was the last guy to leave. I didn't hear what his comments were, but
So he said that he does not want to be a mentor. Now he said he wants to lead by example, but ultimately not be a mentor to these young guys. And I mean, he said that before. We knew that when the Browns signed him. I think that he said in the question, like, hey, this puts me in a really awkward position because if I say one thing, if I say I want to be a mentor, you're going to think I'm not taking my job seriously. But if I say I don't want,
he is fighting for the starting position, right? Yeah,
like a weird thing. Like it's a weird question, but saying like he wants to lead by example, not necessarily be a mentor to these young guys. I mean, I think that's a good answer. He's out there competing for the starting job, just like Kenny Pickett, Shador Sanders, Dylan Gabriel. They're all in the same boat. Just because he's the old guy in the room doesn't necessarily mean that he wants to do that. But I think there comes a time in your career where that's just by default who you are.
Yeah, and let's remember, he came in, Flacco fever of the season. He came in and rode us to the playoffs. People rallied around him, and he led by example, just being who he was as an individual, right? David Njoku was excited to be around him. All these other guys, Amari Cooper. So, he reminds me a little bit of my favorite president, that being Teddy Roosevelt. Speak softly but carry a big stick. He kind of carries himself as that kind of guy, and he kind of demands the respect because of who he is and what he's done. And I think he will lead by example with inadvertently just being who he is, the person Joe Flacco.
Yeah. I think this is a really interesting room, having 4 quarterbacks right now. One thing I do want to talk about is how this is going to look, during the duration of OTAs and into training camp. I mean, having 4 quarterbacks on the roster, and any one of them could be the starting quarterback week 1. I think that's still kind of up in the air. That the job is any of these guys to win. It's not like, hey, Joe is the guy. It really, this is a pretty fair competition. I'm very curious to see how they shape their practices. Are they going to be doing this in sets? Are they going to be splitting this up? Who's getting the reps and at what time and with who? Kind of having, a team with Shador, a team with Dylan, so on and so forth. What this is going to look like, I think that Kevin's really going to have to change the way that they structure their practices because this is semi-unprecedented.
Well, you bring up a really good point. So Kevin Stefanski was in studio last week on 92.3 The Fan, and he raised some eyebrows around the league from former players, and he kind of made the omission that all the quarterbacks are going to have an equal opportunity to show their worth. And from a lot of players around the league, that raised some eyebrows because they're like, that's not how it works. The 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s, and you get very limited reps. And that's just the way it is. And you got to really claw your way up to the top if you even want to get a smell as the backup or that. So basically saying Shador Sanders is uphill battle. But then when Stefanski said that raised a lot of eyebrows. Like, to your point, he clearly is going to change up the dynamics based on that because, and these guys, from watching a lot of shows, they're like, I've never heard a head coach ever say this going into training camp when we had a quarterback competition or anything similar to this. And he goes, what the problem is? And a lot of people said this. This is what happens when you have a 5th-round draft quarterback that probably should have went in the 2nd or 3rd at the latest, and you're having to deal with this now. Like, that's really what it is. Like, at the end of the day, if this was just a 5th-round quarterback that was graded a 5th-round quarterback, probably I feel Stefanski goes through his normal routine like he would with his reps with these guys, I think. But because of this unique,
it's just so interesting because there isn't the guy in this room right now.
No.
There is
No.
not the guy. And I think when you look at any quarterback competition around the league, and this is why I said it's pretty semi unprecedented or just unprecedented to begin with, because sure you've got four guys in the room. Any of them can win the starting quarterback job. I wouldn't be surprised if any of them won. Now I'm sure everybody has their own perception of these players, has their own depth chart in their mind, right? But like we don't know. We're not in these rooms. We don't know what this actually looks like. But not only do all of these guys have a shot, all of these guys didn't come with a huge price tag either. You've got Joe
Correct.
Flacco, who is, just brought in. You've got Kenny Pickett. Sure, they traded a fifth round pick to go get him. Now, kind of expensive for Kenny Pickett, but nonetheless, they didn't give up a ton to go get him. And then you've got Dylan Gabriel, a third rounder, and Shador Sanders, a fifth rounder. None of these guys carry a huge price tag. So I think that equal opportunity is such an interesting piece to not only what the season's going to look like, but just the preseason leading up to, what's really going to matter.
Well, and think about this, Allie, in both of our lifetimes since the rebirth of the Cleveland Browns in 99, there has never, and I'm thinking, looking back, has there been truly a quarterback competition since 99, like what the Cleveland Browns are looking at? And some of the talking heads like Scheffner and those guys out there are like, Cleveland is going to be fascinating to watch this year camp because, to your point, we've drafted quarterbacks high in the first round and miss because that guy is the presumed guy that's going to start.
Right.
You have, to your point, you have four quarterbacks right now that literally Kenny Pickett, most could say on this day could be the starter. Next day you could say Flacco. Shador could rise and get in there. Dylan Gabriel, with his composure and amount of games he played in college football, he could be in there and lead. But at the end of the day, think about this. You just brought up a really interesting point. The amount that we're paying on quarterbacks is less or close to half of what we're paying for a quarterback that's not even going to see the field this year.
Yeah, I know, that's crazy.
So like for $20 million, you have four guys and you can try to figure it out. And I got to tell you, I would love for the Cleveland Browns to find the magic among these four, because with 2 first-round draft picks, and if you get your guy this year, this franchise has took a 180 in a great direction for the next 2 to 3 years. Because you have a bevy of draft picks. Next year's draft is supposed to be better, more quality players coming out. You're setting yourself up. And oh, by the way, you now have some not cap hell. Like you can actually see it the end of the runway, and you can be like, okay, all right, here we go towards the dome.
If the Browns hit on one of these quarterbacks and it's the guy, or what we think is the guy, even just for the next few years, it really shapes this team. I would even say, you said 2 to 3 years. I think this changes the direction of this team for the next 5 to 8 years, or even longer.
I said to the dome. Yeah, to the dome. Yeah.
2 first-round picks next year. You can go get a tackle and somebody like Caleb Downs. You can get, generational players. Now, some would argue, hey, you gave up a generational player to trade and have a first-round pick next year. But we don't know that to be true. And we don't know that next year's draft is actually going to be better than this. It's all just, looking ahead. But
how about this? Let me just throw this out at you. You have 2 first-round draft picks. What happens if you can take Smith from Ohio State to add to your wide receiver room?
Well, he's not going to be available.
Is he? He can't declare after 2 years. He can't come out after 2 years.
It's 3 years.
Is it? Okay, I didn't know if it was 2. Okay, so it's 3 years.
But I mean, that'd be awesome. That'd be great. But maybe you can get a Caleb Downs. You can get a tackle. You've got some very key positions with long shelf lives that may be available to you if you don't have to take a quarterback. So I think, it's a really interesting discussion if one of these guys gives you even a sliver of hope, and what this can look like for the future.
So I have a fun little game I'd like to play with them. You're always throwing spur on the moments on me, so we'll see so let's see. I have the stats of all 4 quarterbacks today, and I'm just curious if you can match them. Do you think based on – all right. And you didn't cheat. I don't think you have the stat lines for any of the quarterbacks today.
I don't have that pulled up.
Okay. 9 of 14, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions. Who would you put that with?
I'm gonna go with 9 of 14. Now I don't know how many of each player, but 9 of 14, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. I'll take Joe Flacco.
Damn, 1 for 1. If you nail this is going to be phenomenal. You are correct. 7 of 9 with 3 touchdowns.
Shador Sanders.
Damn, 2 for 2. Okay.
Efficient.
It's a 50-50 now. 11 of 16, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception.
What was it? 11 of 16.
11 of 16, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception.
Well, can you read Joe and Shador's one more time?
Joe
please?
Flacco was 9 of 14, 1 touchdown. Sanders was 7 of 9, 3 touchdowns.
Less
And this
words.
one, I almost said the word. 11 of 16, 2
So
touchdowns.
I'm going to go with Dylan Gabriel on this one.
3 of 3. Allie is trifecta.
Money. I'm going to go with Dylan Gabriel. And the reason that I went with Dylan Gabriel is just the amount of attempts that he had. Doesn't surprise me that it would be more than Shador.
And then Pickett was 9 of 16, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions.
Beautiful.
Okay,
That's
guys,
interesting.
We got to snip that. Allie was 4 of 4 with not even knowing the numbers. That is nails. Holy crap! By the way, I did this same quiz at somebody at work, and they got 0 of 4, and they eat, live, breed football, and they're like,
I was just kind of going off of reps. I just think that's interesting. That is, but man, I'm just so excited to see how they shape their practices. I think that's gonna be pretty telling going into training camp. All right, let's move on here just a little bit. Real quick, want to tell you about our friends over at Stadium Mustard, guys. If you don't have Stadium Mustard in your kitchen this season, you're doing it wrong. The iconic brand, the iconic taste, beloved from ballparks to backyards and everywhere in between. Stadium Mustard is a smooth brown mustard, rich in both taste and tradition. By the way, loved by millions. So be sure to head on over to stadiummustard.com to shop now. We are going to bring on the husband of the program, Dr. David Ullery. But first, a quick word from our friends over at Lorello Vineyards.
Here we go, Brownies Nation. Larry Lorello from Lorello Vineyards. Dustin Cook from Here We Go Brownies. We're here to talk a little bit about Here We Go Brownies wine. Dustin, let us know.
That's right, guys. The season wasn't what we wanted it to be, but the wine is amazing. Platinum winning, award winning wine. Here We Go Brownies wine. Come get it here at the winery or go to lorellovineyards.com. And remember, a portion of every single one of these bottles goes to the Greater Cleveland Food Bank to help those that are in need and hungry. That's right. Here we go, Brownies. Here we go.
Woof, woof.
Let's bring him on, Dr. David Ullery, the husband of the program. Hi, David.
Hi, Allie. Hello, Dustin.
Dr. David, how are you?
I'm great. Happy to be back down in the Florida humidity, sweating my tail off just sitting out here. It's great.
Question I have: you went to South Carolina. Did you barbecue? Were you the one? Were you the headmaster of the grilling, or?
So we did not barbecue. Most of our fine dining was out and about, just because we don't have very many supplies at the condo to kind of do any sort of big meals with.
Fair.
And they've got community grills, charcoal grills, which I could have cooked on, but we do so much of that at home. It was nice to just go have someone cook the food for us.
We did. What did we do? It was before Miami, David. We did some pulled pork. That was very good.
Yeah. So last weekend, 2 weekends ago, we did pulled pork, and that was wonderful.
Was it the place I ordered from for you one time? Was it that place? The pulled pork gift card I got you? Was it that place?
No.
We made it.
I made pulled pork a couple weeks ago.
Oh, you made pulled pork. Okay, because there was some barbecue place you liked there in South Carolina.
Yeah. Yep. That was pretty good. But no, we smoke here a lot on the smoker almost every night when we're cooking.
Yep.
Wow. Traeger? Do you guys do the Traeger, or what do you guys use?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep. Traeger or Blackstone, pretty much every night. One of the two.
It's pretty good.
Well, and you when you have nice outdoors all the time, you can do that, right? When it's warm there kind of all the time, you can kind of grill all the time.
Yeah. All right, David, what do you have for us tonight?
So just to kind of, keep things, I don't know, a little upbeat or kind of like interesting in the off season here, as there aren't a lot of injury news, fortunately, especially with it just being, first 2 days of OTAs. It's good that there's no injuries at this point to report on. One thing that I came across that I think is kind of interesting, and I wish I could find more on, but it doesn't seem to be a whole lot of data on it, is something called the digital athlete. So the NFL has kind of partnered with AWS, which they use a lot for their stats during the Thursday night games on Amazon, kind of those advanced stats and like the predicting who's going to blitz and who's going to get the ball on this play. And they kind of have a pretty in-depth look at the game. It's pretty cool if you've never watched it this season, on Thursday night, take a look at that. But so they, in their partnership with AWS Technology, they developed something called the Digital Athlete, which they say is an injury prediction tool that leverages the data and artificial intelligence to help clubs keep players healthy and performing at the best in the field. So essentially, it provides a complete view of an NFL player's experience from the time they were drafted until current day, looking at both video and data from training, practice, and games, and then running millions of simulations of games and specific scenarios to kind of inform teams as to when players may be at the highest risk for injury. All 32 teams have access to this in a team portal that was developed for the NFL. And that portal includes daily training volume and injury risk information for the team. And it also has league-wide trends and benchmarks just to kind of reference and kind of see what's going on across the league. So coaches and training staff can use that information to develop injury prevention, training, and recovery regimens for players. And it's very customized, specific, and tailored to each individual player. So it's pretty cool that we're seeing the NFL use AI and just this immense amount of data to actually work towards injury prevention. One of the big uses for it in recent years was helping with rule changes, specifically the dynamic kickoff. The league simulated over 10,000 seasons worth of games under the new dynamic kickoff rule, and it provided some insight into how that structure reduces or is going to reduce injury rates and increase kick returns, ultimately both making the game safer, but also increasing excitement with returns. And so I think it's fascinating that they can use this not only for kind of creating customized plans during the offseason and in season for players to help with injury prevention, but also to look at the league as a whole, kind of assess and analyze the best ways to make it safer, but also predict things in the future too. And that the new dynamic kickoff is just one example of that. So that kind of sparked, something else. And Allie and I were talking about this, and we touched on it a little bit a couple weeks ago. Just overall kind of Browns injury predicting for the season. And I think it would be kind of fun to just, do an exercise every week, going kind of group by group, looking at the specific website's injury predictor and looking at what they're predicting right now, maybe looking at it again in August, right before the season starts, and then ultimately at the end of the season, and see how close they were based on their projections. And so this is from the website draftsharks.com, and it's their injury predictor. You can organize it by team, by player, by position. And so I just kind of looked at all the Browns players, and today we'll just go over quarterback and running back. Now, the one downside right now is they do not have the rookies on here, but part of that is just there's not enough data on them. There's no data from the NFL, obviously. My hope is that when we get closer to the season, maybe they will include some data so we can at least have some sort of number to compare to at the end of the season. But regardless, I still think it's a good exercise to do. So we can start with quarterback. Looking at Kenny Pickett, they have him listed first on the depth chart there, at least on Draft Sharks. His injury risk for the season is medium. It's kind of a vague or ambiguous term, but overall, they have very low, medium, and high. So he's a medium. Kind of looking at his history, he's been in the league for 3 years with a total number of injuries of 8, averaging out to just over 2 injuries per season. His season probability of sustaining an injury this season overall for the entire season is 41.5%. So almost a 50% chance of this guy getting injured at some point during the season. His game-by-game probability of having an injury, so every individual game kind of isolated, is a 3% risk. So, game by game, not huge, but that does add up over the season. And overall, they're predicting him to miss a total of 1.3 games this season. So, not a huge number of games that they're anticipating him missing, but we do see just in his data alone, he's a little bit more injury prone than some of these guys, as we'll get into it, with 8 injuries over his first 3 years in the league. And out of the quarterbacks, he has the highest injury probability as well as projected games to be missed. Currently kind of, looking at as being maybe the starter. But obviously we'll get more into that as the season goes on. The other two quarterbacks on the depth chart that they have on this website are Joe Flacco and Deshaun Watson. Both of them listed with a very low injury risk. As we know, Joe's been in the league for 17 years and he's only had 7 injuries. So, you know, 6 times as many years in the league as Kenny Pickett with 1 less injury. So very durable, very healthy, very reliable. That comes out
exercise because so many people look at this depth chart, especially for quarterbacks, and think, okay, we're going to throw old Joe out there who's going to, you know, get hurt early on.
Bust a hip.
When you're looking at this, that really is a really, you know, it's a staggering, you know, kind of statistic there on how many games he's actually missed due to injury.
Yeah, it's amazing. Definitely not a number or the numbers I anticipated when I kind of started gathering this data. So it's at least, you know, a little bit encouraging for, I think, Browns fans to know that there is someone in there who is at least healthy and proven to be durable and reliable at the quarterback position, even if he's not, you know, the the player that he was 10 years ago. He's still going to be able to sling it down the field and at least put the team in a position to win and be competitive every game with low risk for injury.
Okay. Now, with Watson, my question is he a low injury risk because they don't anticipate him being out there?
I don't know. And it's very odd to me. I'm glad you asked that because we saw Deshaun Watson go through 2 season-ending injuries recently. I mean, he had his fracture in his glenoid, and then he tore his Achilles tendon. I mean, how you can categorize someone as a very low risk injury risk after seeing that over the last 2 seasons is a little confusing to me. And I mean, it seems like this is at least up to date in terms of like recent injuries. And so I don't know if they are kind of looking at him not playing, but I don't know why they would necessarily go put in the effort to look at his numbers then if they don't think he's going to play. So it is strange. I don't understand it, but so kind of completing those numbers back with Joe, season probability of injury this year is 14.7%. So very low. Per game probability is 0.9%. So he's got a less than 1% chance of sustaining any kind of injury in any given game. They're projecting him, you know, if he plays the full season to miss 0.2 games. So like we said, speaks towards his durability. And then for Deshaun, 8 years in the league, 10 injuries. So again, I don't know how they're getting this very low risk. It doesn't make a ton of sense to me, but he's had 1.3 injuries per season. His season probability of injury this year is 20.8%, so kind of in between Kenny and Joe, with a per game probability of an injury at 1.4%. Overall projected to miss 1.1 games, which again, I think even just in our first time through with this exercise, we're going to have to take these numbers with a grain of salt because there's a chance that if he were to be on this team still and named the starter, or at least be considered to be the lead for start, he may not even be ready to suit up week 1. And so these numbers are a little interesting to me, and I'm going to have to do see if they go their process for how they analyze this. Just because I'd like to know what they're looking at specifically. But unfortunately, there was a paywall after I clicked 3 times. So I'm going to have to pony up and subscribe for this to kind of really go through this exercise a little bit better.
The paywall.
And I do just want to be clear, like we personally are not here speculating or predicting or any kind of injuries. We're just kind of looking at some of the data that's out there to just see if it's correct and kind of judge it by its, you know, the credibility towards mid-season or after the season.
Yep, and that's exactly right.
You know what I could see people using this for, and maybe they already do? Fantasy football. I could see people using this literally for fantasy football. Like, oh, well, this guy is X amount, you know, probable. I'm not going to put him, you know, like this would be like a great tool for fantasy football. Like this is what he has looked at over his career. I'm not going to put him in my quarterbacks because there's a good chance he's going to get hurt. So
yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. In fact, draftsharks.com, when you go to their homepage, the headline is award-winning fantasy football advice. So that's kind of what they've marketed their website as, and this is absolutely
smart
used
people.
in that. So I mean, I'll go through running backs too. There's only 2 of them listed, just because, like I said, they don't have the rookies on there, and as we know, Nick Chubb is not currently a Brown. So the 2 they have listed currently on the Browns roster are Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong Jr. Jerome is listed at a medium injury risk for the season overall, with Pierre Strong Jr. at a very low. Both of these guys have been in the league for 3 years. They both came in 2022. They both have 7 injuries listed. Pretty similar in terms of their durability with a 1.8 injury per season average. However, again, something I need to look into a little bit more. They have Jerome Ford with a season probability of a 41.2 percent injury risk, whereas Pierre Strong is only at 29.2. Part of that may be considering who's going to be more likely to get more snaps and who's playing more. Again, I don't know if this is based on if the players played a full 17 games or projected playing time as an individual. And I think that will play a role in terms of like how we view this. Per game probability is 3.1% for Jerome Ford. So actually very similar to Kenny Pickett, identical to Kenny Pickett. Pierre Strong's is 2%. Projecting Jerome Ford to, but then look at the, or no, I have these swapped. So projecting for Jerome Ford to miss 1.1 games and Pierre Strong to miss 0.7. So kind of like Ali said, this is not us speculating or predicting what's going to happen. This is looking at some data that's available to us, some kind of niche proprietary data that isn't out there or looked at very widely otherwise. And then I think really the value in this exercise is revisiting this at the end of the season and seeing if they're accurate or not, and using it, as Dustin said, either a tool for success in your fantasy league or just as a fan, helping to kind of set your expectations for the season. Now, injuries are so unpredictable and they occur randomly and sporadically. And so you always have to understand that this is not 100% viable or predictable, but it can always help manage your expectations and just really get a better understanding of the game that we all love and adore so much.
Yeah, and maybe correct, our thought process on some of these players, like knowing, hey, Joe Flacco is not injury prone, kind of shut that fear down. So it's interesting. It really is. So thank you, David.
Yeah, you're welcome. I enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to going through the rest of the roster in the coming weeks.
Yes, that'll be good.
Unfortunately, you may have to do a paywall.
You might have to pay.
3 clicks per day. So if I do my homework in advance, we might be okay.
Or do it from different sign-ins on different computers too. Then you can have one more.
True. That's true.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
I'll log in from Dallas one day, maybe.
That's so stupid. All right, David, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. As always, go Browns.
Go Browns.
Go Browns. That is Dr. David Ellery, the husband of the program. That is the medical moment brought to you by our friends over at Lorello Vineyards. Yeah.
So, Ali, I was just going to update you on something that happened. You probably don't get to see a little of the news media, but I sent you a clip through our Here We Go Brownies inbox. I don't know if you can get the tape or if you can pull it. It's very, very funny that our listeners would probably get a kick out of. I don't know if you can pull it or not, but I'll give you the backstory while you're trying to find that. So David Njoku, we're part of the celebrity softball game again this year, and David Njoku went out to the Captains, which is the minor league baseball team here in this area. And he did an impromptu press conference out there to announce who he was going to have at his game, Shedeur Sanders, all these people. So Jen, who runs the general manager of the Captains, said, oh, by the way, we have a game in 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Do you want to throw out the first pitch? And, of course, he said, yeah, why not? We got the people here, whatever. And he goes, my boy Dustin here is going to catch it. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me right now. So I went out there and then he goes, my boy needs a glove. She's like, no, he doesn't need a glove. I'm like, David Njoku is throwing a baseball, not a softball, towards home plate at me. I caught it in my hand. It came in hard and I dropped it. So the joke is it was all over the news that night of him throwing it to me and me dropping the ball. So I don't know if
I can't pull it up. Can you text it to me or email it to me and I can display it on the podcast tonight?
Yeah. So
email it to me if you can, and I will try to share that.
It is. So our good friend Brian Hannon sent it, and he goes, "Have you watched the news tonight?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't." And he goes, "Well, you're on it for dropping it." But I'm trying to figure out how I can even send this to you because it was sent to me. I can copy. You want me to send it to you in text? Is that be better?
That's fine. I'll figure it out. Right. While you're doing that, I'm going to tell you about our friends over at True Fan Travel. guys, if you are thinking about taking a road trip to go see the Browns or any of your other favorite teams this season, True Fan Travel is your ultimate sports road trip buddy, all about bringing you closer to the heart-pounding action of your favorite away games. Whether you're cheering from the stands or soaking in the local vibes, they make sure every trip is packed with those I was there moments. So grab your gear and make some memories together with True Fan Travel. So please be sure to check them out, especially if you're taking or trying to go to the London game. All right, Dustin, I'll be on the lookout for that, and if I can display that.
By the way, I just realized I sent you the wrong thing. I don't know if you can check our inbox, but I sent you the wrong thing. So
Okay, let me take a peek. While I'm doing that, Dustin, why don't you tell our listeners about City Barbecue?
yeah, guys, City Barbecue with 6 Northeast Ohio locations. If you are looking to also cater that wedding or that special occasion this summer, or just want to do something for your company or anything like that, City Barbecue has got you covered with 6 Northeast Ohio locations. Anywhere here in the burbs, you can pretty much go anywhere and check out City Barbecue. Lots of amazing different packages you can do. They have family packs, all different, and they're also dropping all different kinds of menu items throughout seasonally. And if you haven't had the bread pudding, I definitely recommend the bread pudding. It is absolutely amazing. So you should definitely check that out. It is definitely amazing, amazing food. But check them out. That is our friends over at City Barbecue. And now I'm going to try to send this one more time because I think I can send it to you. But yeah, the other thing I sent to you. So now it should be in the Here We Go Brownies inbox under comments or whatever you should have.
All right, well, I will look and see if that's something that I can pull up. In the meantime, just to keep everything going here, I want to go through some kind of way too early superlatives for this team, Dustin. And I really just want to do it for the Browns only. We're not opening it up to the rest of the NFL, just for the Cleveland Browns. And I've got a couple of categories here that I want to run by you. Just some predictions, right? So I want to start with breakout player. Who on this team do you think could fall into that category? Maybe somebody last year that was kind of on the cusp, but really, maybe a little bit too young, or the circumstance was not quite right. When you look at this roster, Dustin, is there somebody that stands out to you as a potential breakout player?
Yeah, that I think could have the potential, depending on who these quarterbacks are.
No, just in general.
I just like the guy that just was kind of like had the opportunity, but it just didn't, materialize. I'm going to say Cedric Tillman. Yeah. I think he could be a guy with some of these, and again, it all depends on the quarterback position. We know this all so well. I think that is a position that could very well be because I think Cedric Tillman has all the tools. I just think because of our quarterback position and what's happened, he really hasn't been able to show his talents, unfortunately. And I think that's just unfortunate. So that would be my guy. And if I had to throw somebody else in there that could possibly, Cedric Tillman, who else that just comes to mind that would be, that's probably the one that just sticks out. Like that just, can rise above where he's been. And he may be asked to do more too, right? At the end of the day, based on where he was last year. So
yeah, I also have Cedric Tillman here. I think that Cedric got in his own way a lot of the time, especially in his rookie season. I mean, just the pre-snap issues was a big part of it. So even kind of taking the quarterback situation out of it, I think just as a player alone in his own right, I think he's going to certainly make some strides. And I really do think that we'll see a much better player in Cedric Tillman this year. Now, obviously, not knowing who the quarterback is going to be going into the season is, a little bit concerning, especially for this wide receiver group. But ultimately, I think he's got the talent. And I agree with this. Jamari Thrash, that's another one that I think could really make some strides for this offense. And ultimately, you need one of these guys to step up in a big way, because I'm still of the belief that the receiving room is still a weak spot. So if you can have Cedric Tillman develop into the player that we think that he can be, I mean, that's really good news for this Browns offense. Let's go to the rookies. Your offensive rookie of the year is
for the Browns.
For the Browns.
Oh well, I didn't know if we were doing for the entire league.
This is just the Browns. We are not talking about the NFL, just the Browns.
Rookie of the year. I'm going to go out on a limb here. Like, I'm going to go Shador Sanders.
Okay.
I'm going Shador Sanders. By the way, I did text it to you now, so you should have it texted to you as well. I'm going to go Shador Sanders, but slash Judkins. I think Judkins could be a breakout type of player because he's going to definitely get reps. He could be 1A, 1B with him with Ford. So, probably Judkins realistically, but, for a hot take, Shador Sanders, goes through this camp, ends up getting a chance to start sometime in the season. We've talked about this. If Joe Flacco's not starting, we love Joe Flacco, but there's some detriment to Joe Flacco starting too because we can't see what these guys are made of too, right? It's a double-edged sword for us. So
yeah. I'm going to go with Sean. He's my offensive rookie of the year, and I think for him it's because he's coming in behind a pretty well-developed offensive line outside of some question marks at tackle, but coming into a pretty good offensive line, a very running back friendly offense and what Kevin Stefanski wants to get back to. I really do think that he's going to have a really good rookie season, especially knowing that there's not a lot of guys in his way to be RB1. Certainly we know what we have in Jerome Ford. I think Dylan Sampson is going to be a really good football player too. Yeah. But I think that Sean is going to be the guy. I really do. So he's my offensive rookie of the year. Now, defensive rookie of the year, I'm going Mason Graham on this. I think that he's going to be an impact player week 1. I think that he's going to be disruptive immediately. He's going to be a good run stopper. I think that he immediately improves this defensive line, which I already think is pretty good. The entire defensive line as a whole, I feel really good about that going into this season. I think that's one of the stronger position groups. I'm going to go with Mason Graham for my defensive rookie of the year. What do you got?
Yeah, I think there was a lot made of Mason throwing up and kind of all these weird things when he came there for the first week. But if you watch any of the OTAs today, he got some pressure on Dylan Gabriel and batted a ball down. So that's what you want in your first round draft pick. That's going to be a disruptor, kind of violent guy in the middle there, right? So, and again, this is the very early stages of OTAs. What's he going to look like by the end of training camp, right? Obviously, he's going to be probably a little bit bigger. Maybe, I guess his weight is fluctuated by 20 pounds. We're talking about. It's very interesting. But, will he have more weight? Will he be more lean, quicker? I don't know. But I think we're going to have a much more polished Graham after going through a season, because I always think players that are already good or very good become kind of people around you. That just makes you a better player.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We lost you there for a second, Dustin. I don't know if you're good. Looks like you're frozen. So, all right, you're back. You're good. Oh, nope, you're not. I'm going to kick you off because I maybe refresh. Can everybody hear me? Okay. If you can, give me a thumbs up or something there in the comments. We're going to let Dustin kind of refresh here, and looks like he's coming back to life. I think. No, he's not. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's Dustin. I'm not entirely sure. All right, you good? We back? Okay, no. So I'm going to keep moving while he figures that out. I'm going to get into so we did offensive rookie of the year, defensive rookie of the year. I want to get into offensive player of the year. And I'm going to actually start with David Njoku. I know we were just talking about him with his celebrity softball tournament, but I really believe that it's going to be David Njoku. We talk about Kevin Stefanski wanting to get back to who he is as an offensive play caller. Obviously last year didn't pan out in the way that we wanted it to, but we go back 2023, 2022, what that looked like for him. I think that David Njoku is going to have a very big year. He's already kind of talking himself into top 5 tight ends in the National Football League. I think if he can have really even, a 700-yard season, we're going to be talking about him in that conversation. I personally think that David Njoku can get to 1,000 yards this season, just given the offense that Stefanski wants to take or create rather, and because David Njoku obviously just has the skill. Dustin, welcome back. Okay.
Yeah.
Not No, just kidding. Not welcome back. Are
Can
you
you see
still
me good?
here? I can't see you very well, but I can hear you.
Yeah.
All right,
It looks like you kicked me again.
all right, we're just gonna kick him again. I couldn't even hear him. And then let's get to my defensive player of the year. Look, I think it's one of two. I think it's going to be either Miles Garrett or Denzel Ward. I think if Denzel can play healthy, and that's always the key for Denzel, you are looking at a top 5 corner in the National Football League. I truly believe that. My money is on Miles Garrett, especially with what happened this offseason, the very public and ugly trade request going on Media Row at the Super Bowl, saying some not great things about this organization and kind of painting them in a weird picture. I'm going to go with Miles Garrett. I think that he's going to kind of put that all to bed and come out, have a very strong season. I know that he did last season, battled through some injury. I would have liked to have seen him at OTAs, of course, but I do understand the idea of that being optional and getting your body right, getting it healthy. But I do think that Miles Garrett's going to come out, and I would even potentially put some money on him, because I'm a degenerate gambler, on actually being the defensive player of the year in the National Football League. So a couple others here. Standout lineman. This is a new superlative for the National Football League. I'm going to give my standout lineman award for this exercise to Wyatt Teller. And the reason that I'm doing that is I think that this is a very solid offensive line as it is. We know that Joel had to make the decision whether or not he wanted to come back to this organization. We know what we have in this interior of the offensive line, but it's not getting any younger. Wyatt had kind of an up and down season last year, battled through some injury, of course, gave up some pressures, just gave up a little bit more than what we would like to have seen out of Wyatt Teller. But I think similarly will bounce back. I really do. Just like David Njoku last year, who battled through some injury and didn't quite have the season that we wanted him to have. I think if Wyatt is healthy, one, obviously that's going to bode very well for this offensive line. This offensive line is a lot better with Wyatt Teller. And also him as the player. He's got a little bit to prove. He was involved in some trade rumors. He was involved in, just some of the discussion of players that needed to be better. Now, some of the blame was, hey, we lost Bill Callahan. Of course, this offensive line is going to kind of go down a little bit. But ultimately, I think that we were plagued with injury. I think we were plagued with weird offense. We were just plagued last year, period, point blank. So I think that Wyatt Teller is going to have a really good season. I'm going to go with Wyatt Teller for my standout lineman. And then looks like Dustin's trying to reconnect here. Let's see. Let's add him. Are you back? How you feeling? All right. He's back. He's alive.
I don't know if there was a thunderstorm or something that rolled through, but it said my signal was strong, but nothing was working. Nothing.
It happens.
Nothing
It happens.
Yeah.
So I just gave my standout lineman award to Wyatt Teller. I want to talk about position groups now. Let's talk about the most improved position group. So not most improved player, but most improved position group. Dustin, what do you think?
The defensive line for the Cleveland Browns. Easily the most improved position group with the addition of Mason Graham, obviously, and with Hall coming back, hopefully fully healthy. I'm looking for this because they're going to have to be very disruptive this year anyway in a lot of ways to help the offense. But I'm looking forward to this defensive front. They're very improved, and I'm excited to watch them.
Yeah. I'm going to give look, I've got a couple here that I think you can make an argument for. I'm going to start with the offensive line. I just talked about Wyatt Teller and why I think he's going to be the standout lineman of the year. But just the offensive line as a whole really got away from their identity last year for a couple of reasons. One, just the offense. Two, plagued with injuries. As I said a minute ago, we're just plagued last year. But I think you do have some uncertainty at tackle. We know that we're going to most likely see DeJuan Jones at left tackle. He's battled through tremendous injury. He's coming back from the knee surgery. Jack Conklin, who has also battled through injury. So this offensive line as a whole, like I said, not getting any younger. This is a pretty old offensive line, have some question marks on it. However, getting back to what Kevin Stefanski wants to do offensively, you feel really good about the talent that you have on this line. I really don't think that we will see what we saw last year in terms of just injury on what we saw that was terrible. So I really do think that we will see this offensive line get back to a really good group going into this season. Additionally, I also included linebacker. I know that we just suffered a huge loss in losing JOK for the season. However, you add in Carson Swessinger to that room. You've got Jordan Hicks, Jerome Baker, Mumad Diabate, Winston Reed, Devin Bush. You've got some dudes. You really do. And I have always been vocal that this linebacking room has never been good enough. I think that because the defensive line is above average, this is a really good defensive line. And I think that our corners are really good. That's going to allow the second level to do their job. We saw that 2 years ago, Dustin, when we had the best defense in the league. It was because the middle of that defense was able to just do their job. They weren't getting, they weren't having to really get sucked into doing the jobs of the defensive tackles because we had a weak defensive tackle room. So I really think that this is going to be improved from what we saw last year, even though we have lost JOK. Now, add him to the mix. This is just ferocious, in my opinion. And also, I do think that our running back room is going to be better than it was last year. And really, the reason for that is just you add a lot of talent. Of course, you lose Nick Chubb, and that's a huge, huge loss. But I think adding Quinshawn and Dylan Sampson to that room really helps what we want to do offensively.
Yeah, and especially in the running back room. I mean, I don't think we can't lose sight of having two really, I mean, we all can agree this was a very deep running back class, and it was a very great running back class. And maybe we'll look back 3 to 5 years from years from now and say, man, this was the draft of running backs that, and, we all know that running backs are in vogue again in the National Football League. So, but they're young, right? We're going to have fresh legs, 1, 2 going out there. You mix in Ford to that, you have a three-headed monster at running back. That's going to be really good this year. And that's going to, that's going to extend plays. That's going to extend the clock. It's going to help our offense. It's going to take pressure off our defense. Those things are all going to be good things if we're going to sustain some wins this year. And I'm not saying how many wins we're going to get. It's a tough schedule. It's, we didn't get one damn primetime game. That's how much the league loves us out of 3 teams. But, if this team can put it together, it's a 7 to 10 win team if they do everything right, at the end of the day. I mean, but if they don't, they're probably a 3 to 5 win team, but you got to have some consistency on offense. And I think the running back room is going to do that for us.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I agree that the running back room will certainly help. And just get back to basics, get back to fundamentals. And when you look at the defense, I feel really good about the defense. I really do. The defensive line, I feel confident in.
Yeah.
Definitely, better than most in the National Football League.
Sure.
And same with the secondary. It's good. It's a good secondary. Now, of course, this is all, we don't want to see any injuries. That would certainly just derail this. Of course, but that would certainly help out the linebackers. That was a huge issue last year, the year prior, or prior to that, the linebackers just weren't able to do their job. Now they can sit back, they can read and react, and that's certainly going to be beneficial and get to the defense that Jim Schwartz wants to run. So I think just getting back to the basics, getting back to fundamentals, letting these coordinators, these coaches do their job that's what we want. That is what we want. Here I have the video pulled up. I don't have. Let's see. I'm not going to put the audio, however, just because I don't know if I'll be able to do that. But give me a moment here. Let me share my screen. Let me see if we can make.
Have you already watched it yet, or are you going to see it?
Let's see what we got.
Okay, so this is David Njoku in his interview on Channel 19 News.
Oh, there's Dustin. Oh my God. Hang on, I'm rewinding this. I got to see that again. Hang on, we're gonna pause this and do this. And I'm gonna get rid of these captions. Hang on. Oh my good God! Look at this athletic specimen here. That is just classic. Look at David's face. He even knows it. He's like, look at this.
Well, he also said you didn't give my boy a glove. And by the way, he didn't throw it like light. He didn't do a lot. Like he was like. I mean, it's a baseball.
I like that. I'm glad we got to all
I
experience that.
figured you would find some humor in that. So yeah, that was
course
Channel
I
19
do.
News. Yeah,
That's
I literally, my phone was blowing up, and everybody was like, "You had one job to do, and that was catch the ball."
Yep,
Like, that was it.
that's funny. All right, Dustin, why don't you tell our listeners about this beautiful specimen, the Lady Caroline cruise ship?
That's right, guys. Lady Caroline is out in Lake Erie, making its rounds for lunch and dinner cruise or any private events you want to book it for. And that's right, we put out a $100 gift card out there for you to win. We'll give that away in about a week. Who would want a $100 gift card to Lady Caroline? What an awesome, awesome thing to possibly win and enjoy with a bunch of friends, Brown Spence family or whatever. We also are going to be doing a Here We Go Brownies cruise later on this year, and we'll have some more details on that and doing some fun things. And then, by the way, if you're downtown and you're taking in Lady Caroline, check out the place right next door, the Greater Cleveland Aquarium. That's right, Greater Cleveland Aquarium. Right there, there's the Shark Tank. Look for a show to be soon from inside the Shark Tank. That's right, that'll happen sometime this summer. But also another big giveaway. We're giving away an annual pass to the Greater Cleveland Aquarium for 2 adults and up to 6 kids. That's right, you heard that, 6 kids, where you can take the entire family, if you have 2, 3, 4, or 5, 6 kids, along with 2 adults to, no, that's not, yeah, that's not happening. And no, we're not moving the show to 8 o'clock, Jason. So look for that giveaway. Those will be given away in the next week to 10 days. But 2 big giveaways from our friends at Greater Cleveland Aquarium and Lady Caroline.
There you go. There you have it. Also, we do want to tell you about our friends over at Weebleed, Ohio. You can get your, baseball apparel, maybe some basketball apparel, football apparel. You can check them out. They've got some really cool things. And of course, as you can see, what Dustin's wearing, that's an official Here We Go Brownies podcast t-shirt. You can put that on a sweatshirt, t-shirt, what have you.
We're doing a summer flash sale for those guys that would like to pick some of those up. I found when you take some We Bleed Ohio gear out, that is Here We Go Brownies, on behalf of those guys. People will like it when we're at an event. So $25 for a t-shirt. $20 for a t-shirt, not 25, $20, which is a great deal. And the hoodies are $40. So we're discounting that. So appreciation from our friends over at We Bleed Ohio as they sell those, as well as all the other cool stuff on their site.
There you go. All right, there you go. There you have it. This was a lot of fun. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. But before we go, I got a quick song to play you.
SOS, I could use a hero right about now. My faith in love is upside down. H-E-R-O, where do we all go? SOS, I could use a hero right about now. My faith in love is upside down. H-E-R-O, I crave a hero. I crave a hero.
Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate you. Stay safe, stay healthy. And as always, Browns fans, go Browns.
Go Browns.